Easy, how are we? Oh. Smitey, how are we? Okay, so this week on the Any Given Runday Podcast, due to the lack of reaction from Eric and Rachel, you can hear that you can obviously can't hear, but can hear, if you know what I mean, that they are not here. So today's episode is going to be a solo episode with myself. We're going to try and keep it 10-15 minutes, and obviously if you're a follower of the Any Given Runday podcast or at least the Instagram, you would know that recently I did the 4x4x48 challenge. Or if you read the title of this podcast, you'd know that this episode is going to be quickly about how I got on doing the 4x4x48 challenge. And it should be a good listen for those of you that would have any interest in doing it. But at the same time, there's some things I did preparing for this run that would prepare me for a lot of runs in general, even though, as I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, there's no actual blueprint to how you tackle something like running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. But before we get into that, if you were like me, you were one of the many people that were disappointed to not get a ticket for the London Marathon. If you are ready to get your hearts broken again, the lottery at the moment for the New York Marathon is still on. So I think it's on to the end of the week that you can apply and try and get to New York. I have no idea the odds, but I did read today it was something like 450,000 people applied for London for only 17,000 places. So I knew I wasn't getting in. I have a backup plan for it that I'll get into soon. Not in this podcast, but I had a feeling I wasn't getting into it. But it doesn't help. There's no harm in doing a free application to try and get into something as cool as one of the big six, that being the London Marathon. Of course, New York is one of the big six as well. So it was actually a couple minutes before I didn't get into London. I was hitting the refresh in the Twitter feed, see other people getting the places. And it's funny because everyone that posted on Twitter did not get a place. It wasn't like someone was like, hey, I actually got a place to London. Maybe they're kind of like, I don't want to rub into people's faces or whatever it is. But everyone coming up was just not this time. So I don't know anyone who did get a ticket to London, but maybe you're listening right now and you did get a ticket. So if you did, congratulations to you. I genuinely mean that, even though it sounded very sarcastic. Congrats, you're going to London, doing the London Marathon in the start of October. That's pretty cool. But for the rest of us, maybe we're going to hold out hope for New York. I know I've got Dublin a week before that, but I can't pass up the opportunity to get to New York if I did get to New York doing that marathon. So with that said, guys, we're going to go straight into this episode. I know that it's a solo episode, but don't worry, there will be a big influence from the likes of Rachel and Eric in terms of my preparation of the podcast, and especially from Eric, who maybe I was sleep deprived, but let's just say he rubbed me up the wrong way on one or two of the 4x4x48 runs that we'll get into right after we hit the intro music this week's episode of the show. So, the 4x4x48 challenge, for those who don't know, I think I said it during the intro, it is a run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So, it was created by former US Navy SEAL David Goggins, so it's the Goggins Challenge. I talked before on the podcast, I listened to his book last November actually, just after doing one of the marathons and having my own struggles in the last 10, 12k. I think pace got to me that I went out way too fast, and I was hitting PBs, hitting 30k, which I probably shouldn't be doing if I was doing a marathon. But I felt like even when I did have to stop for the last 12k, part of me felt that my mind gave up. And one of the Goggins, I suppose, things he's known for is the 40% rule, and that would be at 40% when you think your body's done, your mind can push you to go that little bit further. And that's what intrigued me about when that was intertwined with the 4x4x48 challenge, and not knowing how I react to getting up every 4 hours. But there's a lot of things I did prepare for this challenge that I feel would help people prepare for different runs and marathons and all the rest, even though there's no actual blueprint for training for 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. But I knew a couple of things. I knew I had to get miles in the legs. So last December, what I did was on Christmas week, because what else would you do on Christmas week except running a 50k? And to do that, I slowed it down because I wanted to see whether my pace was an issue. I knew pace was an issue, but how much pace played an issue on that day where my legs just gave up at the 30k mark for that marathon in November. So I did 3 10-mile runs, so a little bit over 10 miles, so I'd get the 50k in total. So I think it's like 16.67 kilometers or something like that. 32 miles, something like that. I can't remember exactly the way the maths worked out, but it was just under 17k, just a little over 10 miles for each of the runs. I take a 5-minute break, go back out again, refuel a bit, go back out. And by the third time, my legs were in bits, but I was able for the 50k. And what I also noticed was that 2-3 days later, I was back training again. Because my pace wasn't hell for leather, and we've always talked about this in the podcast about slowing down to go faster, you recover a lot quicker that way too. Obviously race day is a little bit different. You got to go hell for leather and go for PBs and all the rest, and that's why it takes longer to recover. It's the pace that kills, not exactly the distance, and I felt that firsthand. So doing that, I was like, okay, I think I'm able for the 4x4x48 if I can just keep the mileage in the legs and keep that going. But I also knew the mind was going to be a big factor as well. So the weather has been absolutely shocking the last couple of weeks, and we had 1 or 2 reels on our Instagram where it was just lashing rain. I was like, look, if I can get myself out there and force myself to do really long runs in that rain, if it happens to rain over a 4x4x48 weekend, I can say to myself, look, you're after doing 33k in the rain a couple of weeks ago. All you have to do is 6.25k, 4 miles. Just pace yourself through, see how, and it's just a training run. So when it came to challenge week, I wanted each run to feel like a training run as opposed to how am I going to get another 4 miles, and just thinking about the whole thing. How am I going to get 48 miles and counting down 44 left and 42 of, oh my God, I'm getting tired. 48 miles and 44, then 40, and thinking it down that way. It was just like, okay, what's the next 4 mile run that I have to do? And speaking of the next 4 mile run, and all these runs, kind of like the ideas behind all this came through my long runs. I've said this before in the podcast plenty of times. I find I do like my best thinking when I'm on a long run, where I can kind of just zone out and different things that come to mind just start flooding to me of different ideas. And one of them was I wanted to make this as much of an event to run with as many different people as I could. So I wanted each run to have some sort of meaning to. So we'll get to in a second. My first run would be Eric in the Phoenix Park. And the Phoenix Park is obviously a part of the Dublin Marathon run. Would have been a place where I did a lot of my training before for my first marathon, then the second marathon and all the rest, because I used to live very close to it. So I had different locations that meant something, so that when I was ready for the next 4 mile run, it was a case of, okay, this is pretty cool because I get to meet up with this person or these people and get to run here. I haven't ran here in a while, and this brings back different sort of memories. So it felt like an event. But I have to tell you that, like, leading up to it, I had all these positive thinking, these positive thoughts leading into it. I honestly didn't know how to sleep I'd feel during it, and that was just one of those things where I was just going to have to try and grin and bear it and get through it, and we'll talk about how I got on in a second doing that. But I also felt that when I was talking to people about it, those that hadn't done much running, they're like, so you're doing what? Wait, why? You're insane, you're crazy. And it was getting to me that so many people were saying this. I had to sit back and go, actually, is this an insane challenge? Maybe I'm just so deep into the social media of seeing Goggins doing all these different things and being around all these people doing these mad challenges that I haven't stepped back and gone, Jesus, Seán, you haven't actually pushed yourself to that level yet. Are you at that level? And I didn't know. So it was definitely a mental battle to go, you know what? No, you can do this. You've all your runs leading up to it, and all my runs for the last 6 weeks leading up to this, they were a lot longer than 4 miles because, like I said, I wanted it to feel like a training run. So each run felt like a training run. I had plenty of tank. I was able to fuel up and go again from there. So on the day of the 4x4x48 challenge, I was ready. I had my clothes all ready to go for each one of the 12 runs, because those of you that don't know, that those of you that do early morning sessions, be it runs or in the gym, whatever, it's that hard battle to get up earlier when you don't need to get up, where it's like you have to get up for yourself to do a workout. It can be hard to push yourself out of the bed, especially when it's like, I could lie in, I deserve a lie in, or you're sitting there thinking, well, my clothes aren't ready, I don't know where this is, I'm not prepared, I won't have, by the time I have all that stuff together, I won't be ready, I'm going to fall back asleep and you know, get my well-earned rest from doing absolutely nothing like before. But your mind starts playing tricks on you and tries to keep you in that bed and keep you staying comfortable, but you have to fight that to get out and get going. And I didn't want to have those extra mental battles when I was going to be sleep deprived over these 48 hours. So I made sure all my clothes were ready, my runners, socks, extra jocks, everything was all good to go. So I knew, okay, 4 a.m. come Saturday night and run 8 or 9, whatever it was, I'd have this and this ready. So when I was lying in that bed and thinking about, my God, the effort to get up right now, I knew there's the clothes, they're right there. That excuse is gone. The runners, they're right there. Your keys are there. You're straight in the car, away you go. The water bottle's already filled. You know what you're having for a bit of food on the way down, whether it was a protein shake bar, bit of food that Eric made that I'll get into the second, or whatever it is, you are ready for it. So everything was prepped that way. Speaking of food, the only thing that I hadn't got prepped was the food itself. So I'm not going to lie. We had a podcast a couple weeks ago where I talked about how I wouldn't be the best prepared for nutrition. I've definitely, a lot of mistakes I've made in my marathon training in the past has been the lack of putting emphasis of focus on nutrition. The big man, Eric, knowing this, he was like, right, we're going to get him ready for this. So he came over to the house a couple of hours before I meant to start. He had a massive pasta bake, another dish full of barbecue chicken with tortilla wraps and whatever you call them, and granola and yogurts and grapes. And he was going through it all. I was like, you have this at this time for this, and this time for this, and this time for this. And to be honest with the big man, I was only half listening because I was looking at all this food that pretty much covered a kitchen table. And we have a post up online on it. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to eat all this food in 2 days. And he's like, Seán, you're running almost 2 marathons. And that almost got to me. Almost 2 marathons in 2 days. You have to eat all this food. And I'm like, there's no way. I was only thinking about having my normal bit of food and just a small bit extra and stuff. And I realized how that probably wasn't the best approach on my part, but that's the way I was thinking. I was like, I'll have an extra protein shake here. I'll have an extra couple of bits of bacon, a bit of eggs here, my bagels and all the rest. I probably won't eat too much at night time because I know my body's not used to that and I won't sleep. But Eric's like, you gotta have this, and this. So I was like, he had the food already. I had my clothes and stuff already. And then when it came to 8 p.m. on last Friday, March 4th, it was time to get the challenge started. So got into the Phoenix Park, had everything ready except the watch. Those of you that have a Garmin, I don't know if I'm just like, I feel like, you know, when you're younger and your mom and dad can't do something with technology, where sort the printer out or get a certain Sky channel on or something to do with TVs, whatever it is, and you set them up like really easy for them and you're like, oh, they must be like just idiots that I can't sort this out. I somehow am at that age already. So I got to the park at 7:45. I was like, all I have to do is set the phone, the Garmin app and the watch from kilometers to miles. It took me 14 minutes to get it done. So my whole doing Instagram lives and prepping people in went straight out the window right there. I was like, I have no time for this. Like, I just about found that onto miles. I thought we just thought, oh, there, hit that button and that's it. Couldn't figure it out for the life of me. And Eric's there just standing outside, come on, I'm freezing, let's go. So eventually got a lot done just in time for the first run. I had my torch and all with me. I was prepped for this thing, everything except the miles. And midway through, it was the first time he had said it. He goes, Seán, you're being a bit of a bitch. Maybe that's harsh thing to say, but that's what he said to me. I said, why? And he says, well, you're almost doing 2 marathons, but you're not quite doing 2 marathons. You're stopping 4 miles short. I'm like, the challenge is 4x4x48. What are you talking about? He goes, well, if you kept going to 52 plus, you would be able to say you did 2 marathons in 2 days, but you're stopping there. So you're going to have to run Sunday at 8 o'clock. And I was like, Eric, that's out because I've already planned to be somewhere in Clane having a few drinks. And I'm not leaving people to go for a 4-mile run just to say I did this. But he's like, you probably should. I'm like, no, that's not happening. So with the exception of him starting to rub me up the wrong way with that, and I hadn't got sleep deprived yet, I got the 4 miles in, felt like a training run, felt great, headed back to the house. I got an hour or so kip, and then I was up for run 2. The hour or so sleep was one of the worst things I could do because I felt really, really groggy at run 2. Actually, out of all the runs, I probably felt worse at run 2, and I don't know why. I just felt groggy and looking dopey, and I was with my mate Elaine, and she had torn her ACL skiing the week before, but she had a motorised scooter that I did not know about. And so she was going around the scooter with me going for the 4 miles while I was running along behind her. And she was like, you look like crap. And I was like, cheers, that's what I need on run 2 of 12 doing 4 miles. But with the exception of that, it was great to run a Minute because Minute was also a place where I would have lived for the first, I know I said I lived for the first marathon, but I actually lived in Minute for the first marathon. And I would have done, when I started getting into running in 2017, a lot of my runs were based around Minute. So Minute is like my second home. So it meant a lot to do there. And I keep bringing these different places up because if you are thinking about doing the 4x4x48 challenge, I would highly recommend making little events at different places because it just helps keeps you going. So whether I struggle at the end or not, and we'll get to that in a little bit, half the battle getting to different places, it was made so much easier by having these little mini events throughout the challenge that I was looking forward to meeting people rather than doing the exact same run, the exact same loop by myself over and over for 12 rounds. I'm not too sure how I would have got on doing that, whereas this was pretty enjoyable. Apart from being real tired at this stage already at run 2, it was real enjoyable. After that was run 3, so I'd planned the 4 a.m. runs to do by myself, near the house, not quite the house, because I live in the back arse of nowhere, that like there'd be no lights and nothing. I'm like, a car's just going to hit me and that's the end of me. So travelled to the nearest town where there was a bit of street lights and stuff, and went from there. But with it being a Goggins challenge, I had to make sure the headphones were left at home. So he always says, cheating, if you're using headphones, using music. So I couldn't get the Rocky music to get me through it. But I just, so I couldn't use Rocky music to get me through it. It was just by myself on it. And even though the 4 a.m. ones seemed like the roughest, it's because they were the 4 a.m.s that they were supposed to be the roughest that was more geared up for. I'm like, okay, here comes the challenge. Here's where you're... And it's a weird thing to explain, that you're doing something you know most people aren't doing. Like the second night when I did this, I was going for the run and I only saw one taxi and he literally pulled over, let someone else to walk home. I was like, there's someone who's like night out drinking. And here I am, 4 a.m. in the morning going for a run. And I felt... maybe it's ego, I don't know, but I just felt like because I was doing something that other people aren't doing, I was pushing myself that little bit further, that it inspired me to keep going a little bit further. But with this 4 a.m. run, I made probably my most critical mistake of the 4x4x48 challenge, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, and that was I had eaten the end of the pasta bake, and like I had 2 or 3 portions at this stage already. But I decided when I got back from the Newt run, I was tired, but I was very hungry, and I wasn't interested. And Eric, he says afterwards, he told me at night time, have the granola and yogurt after the runs. I don't remember that part. I was thinking of the amount of food on the table. But it was just as easy for me to put the pasta bake into the microwave and away I go. So halfway through the run, my stomach starts acting up, and like I was getting contraptions and everything. Like it was just tightening up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. And I get a wave and nice and relaxed. And then like 2 minutes later, I started getting contractions again. I was arching back, trying to run, waddling. Thankfully, it was 4 a.m. and no one could see me. I was half tempted to go in the bushes. Like, no, just make it back. And I kept going. And then I went from 2 minutes down to 90 seconds. I'm like, it's getting faster. But somehow, this story ends with me making it back to the car, making it back to the house, and just straight in, just in time before having a major accident. So if you are doing this, I would not recommend having a lot of carbs at nighttime. Especially if you're not used to it. Maybe you are used to it, but me, I struggled in that, and it was definitely something where I got to the second half of the challenge, I started eating a lot lighter because of it, because I was worried about having too much food than what I was used to and being afraid of cramping up, especially when I was starting running with people again. I was like, I can't be arching back and trying to waddle down the street running with people when I'm supposed to be like going through a hard Goggins challenge like this. But after that, the challenge just got more and more enjoyable. Like, I was 8 a.m, I was down in Clane with the run club, getting to run with them. I felt a little selfish because I was doing my own thing during the run club, but it was just great running with them, especially something we've got going for the last 10 weeks, and just seeing that build. Really, really enjoyable. Then after that, a couple of cups of coffee, making the drive back down to Wicklow, the Pops, run 5. Anyone who's listened to this podcast before would know that my dad is insane. When he puts his mind to something, he does it. He's not a runner at all, but he was like, I have to do this. I'm going to run with you. So he did the treadmill leading up to this. He did 48 minutes for a 5K, for a 6.25K 4 mile. He did it in 48 minutes. When we ran together, even though part of the run was along the beach, once again, an event, heading back home where I grew up, all the rest. Running with my dad as well was a big part of that. And then he did it in 44 minutes. I'm like, holy crap, that's insane for him. I got a chance to actually nap here for the first time. So over the between 12 and 8, when I went to sleep, I didn't sleep properly. I was like, do you know when you've got an early morning flight, for example, you're going on holidays or something, and you try to get a few hours sleep, but you don't actually sleep because you feel like, I'm going to sleep out in the alarm clock, even though there's 76 of them set. That's exactly how I felt in this. So with that said, it wasn't until I got back to the house, got my run in, my mom's like, you need to sleep because you're traveling too much doing this stupid challenge. I'm like, yes, ma'am. She's like, before you sleep, here's a big plate of lasagna. I'm like, my God, so much carbs. But we had them and then slept for the hour, no alarm. They woke me up at 3:30. Good to go again, because my dad was like, right, we're going for one more round, except he picked a route, which I thought was harder. But he ended up doing it 10 seconds faster, which was unbelievable. With that, we broke the halfway challenge. And at this point, I'm thinking we're halfway through. We're heading into night 2. I'm going to start getting tired at this stage. There's going to be a stage where I start to break, where I start to get tired. I was a little bit worried as well, because I made all these events with different people to meet up with, that I start getting cranky and tired and stuff in front of them. But before I headed out, Mum had a second plate of lasagna. I had that. On I went for back to Clane for the run club at 8 o'clock. I had a few people running me, including 2 people, Ursula and Keith, who were doing a 10-mile run the next day in Naas. So I was incredibly appreciative that they came running with me on the 8 p.m. I was not expecting them at all. And just having the crack with people doing a 4 mile, felt like a training run, felt great, was really, really enjoyable. Short nap afterwards, and the food was gone at this stage. It was back to protein shakes and a couple of full bars. Shout out for a sponsor there, please. Only messing. But I had a couple of them protein shakes heading to night 2, because I was not having another accident, or near accident I should say, from night 1. At the 12 o'clock run, Eric was back again, fixing to run me up the wrong way. And I met him and Barrow Valley runner Dara as well. Shout out to Dara if you listen to the podcast. Thank you so much. He came all the way up from Greg Mana. So if you don't know Dara, he'd done a couple of podcast episodes. It was last year. He ran the entire Barrow Valley Way. He set a fast known time doing that. I was lucky enough to do a couple of, I think it was 20 odd K at that run I did with him. And he was like, Seán, I'm definitely heading up doing this. I'm like, Dara, it's a long way. You don't need to. But he insisted. Incredibly grateful to run with him. It was fantastic running with him. Except for one part of the run. And he knows where I'm going with this. So, I can't remember the specifics and how it led to US politics and all the rest. But he told me what a hanging chad was. And this on top of Eric's talk the night before by the Phoenix Park. I was like, you guys are really trying to run me up the wrong way. But I'm not biting. So a hanging chad was, let's say instead of the 4 miles, I ran 4.3 miles on each one of my runs. I could have said I ran 2 marathons in the 48 hours. But instead, I stuck to 4 miles because that was the challenge. And I can't say I run 2 marathons in 48 hours. So cheers for that, guys. I felt great after that one. And then, to top it all off, Dara come back, felt great. As I was about to head back to the car, head back to the house, and get a couple of hours sleep before run 9, the 4 a.m. run, the one I was really worried about. Eric turns to me, goes, I think Dara dragged you along on that run. I think you're starting to struggle. And I was like, that was like a red flag to a bull. I was like, oh, Dara dragged me along, did he? And no offense, Dara's a fantastic runner. He does insane stuff in the mountains. And on a mountain run or any other run, I'd be struggling to keep up with him. But I was like, oh, Eric thinks that someone's dragging me along on the run, that I'm struggling this day. I'll show you what struggle it is. So I went out stubborn and determined on run 9 and hit my fastest run over the 12 runs, which probably wasn't the smartest thing I'd done, but blasted through that. It was actually, like I was saying about the 4 a.m. the night before, because I was by myself, it was run 9. I built it up. I was running by myself, no headphones. And I built that part up so much, the challenge. I was like, right, let's go. And it's the first ever run I did my glasses on. So tick's not the right word, but I was getting out of the car. I'm like, right, I'm about to show them halfway down the road. I was like, oh, my glasses are still on. Wasn't even thinking. Maybe it was sleep deprivation. Not so sure. So back in the car, couldn't have any more food. Another full bar. Back down to Clane for run number 10. We're almost finished this story, guys. Run 10. Here's where I'm thinking I'm going to start really struggling to get these last couple of runs in. And it never came. I don't know. It just never came. Clane was another great run at 8 o'clock. The girls even had breakfast for me afterwards in the gym. The chocolate milk went down a treat. And then just an hour chilling, having the crack. Very relaxed. I was on to run 11 with the girlfriend around the farm. Once again, that was... I was going to say very relaxed, but she got annoyed the route I took because this was the first time I brought a hill into it near the end. For own personal reasons, I had to go that route for the finish at a certain spot. She wasn't too thrilled with it. I thought it was a very nice idea, but she was like, you're making this very stressful on me. I'm like, you're running 4 miles and this is my 40th to 44th mile. So what happens next? And I've built this up a little bit. So what should have happened next was I got back, relaxed, had a bit of food, maybe napped for an hour or two, and headed on down to Clane for my last run. The big man played me. He got into my head a little bit. I had thought about this before, but the fact he kept running me up the wrong way, I was like, I'm going to show that guy. So this one went off Instagram, wasn't on social media or nothing. I had it on Strava just to make sure I did it. I went back, I got myself massage going, loosened out, bit of stretching because I knew what I was going to do. I took a sneaky 4-mile run around 2 o'clock just to make sure that when he eventually said it later, I was able to turn to him and say, I did 2 marathons. You SOB. I got the 2 of them in. So went out, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a small bit stiff and sore on this one. And I was like, if I'm after stupidly done a sneaky 4-mile run, and then people are waiting for me to finish line in Clane for the last one, and I can't run it, and I'm hobbling in because I did this run, I'm going to feel like the biggest idiot in the world. But thankfully, that didn't happen. The weather on the last run, just like the entire weekend, was phenomenal. I had a few people run with me. A lot of people there at the finish line, which I was not expecting. I was hoping to see them all in the pub and a few drinks, because as much as I have a podcast and I talk about, different posts and even doing the Instagram lives and all the rest, I'm a pretty shy person as it is. So running back in and having people cheering stuff, I genuinely... I cringe a little at that, because it's great when you're doing a double marathon because you know a load of people are there, they're cheering a load of people, and you feed off that kind of energy. But when it's all there just for you, I'm kind of like, don't get me wrong, it was great seeing people there, and best intentions, it was phenomenal, and it was a lot better than having no one there, no one caring in the world. But it was still like, oh my God, cringing. And then the last second, as I'm running into people, I'm like, I think I know that person holding the camera. And then she started shouting. I was like, I got around within 10 feet of her before I realised, that's actually my own mother. Ma, what's the story? Because I wasn't expecting the folks up there. If I hadn't known earlier my dad was going to be there, I probably would have made him run that last 4-mile run. But the whole point of the challenge is, with enough mileage in the legs, build yourself up to it, make it an event, make it something that you're looking for, different runs for different reasons. And even though it was a Goggins challenge, the suffering never came. My legs were not actually that sore the next day, and it goes right back to what I said at the start of the podcast about the pace. And I was doing comfortable paces for me. So for the most part, I was somewhere between 36 minutes and 44, 45 minute 4-mile runs, depending on who I was running with. I was running at their pace, and sometimes I was dragged along at midnight on one of the runs, Eric. But I was running at different people's paces, but I was never the case where I was sprinting while doing it. So each run was enjoyable. It was great to catch up with different people on the runs. It was great to run different places and all the rest. And definitely because we had this event feel to it, and I felt other people felt they were involved in it. Like I've always said, running is not a self-made sport. It's not a one-man sport, even though you just see one person running by themselves. Like there's a lot of people behind how, like, even raising the money, right? Raising nearly $3,000 for St. Bridget's Hospice. There's no way in hell I could have done that by myself. There's a lot of people who shared the link. A lot of people told their friends, family members, even Neve, a girlfriend, who told me to do that charity for various different reasons. Having those people there that helped me do that was phenomenal. Having people along the way on the runs was phenomenal. Eric with the food, even though run 3 was almost the be all end all, the whole challenge, that was incredibly helpful to get through. I know I've gone on him a little bit for getting me doing the extra 4 miles and stuff like that, but it's all love. I was really appreciative of the food there with him as well. Different people helped me get prepared throughout the 48 hours. It was a hell of an event. So if you are listening to this podcast and thinking about doing it, do. It's just you feel great after. I do feel like I accomplished something on it, and it's a weekend I won't forget for a long time. And it was just really, really enjoyable. Just an enjoyable 48 hours. And yeah, there's really not much more I could say on that. I suppose if you are listening to this podcast and you do have any questions, probably hit us up on the Instagram at Any Given Training Day if you are thinking about doing it in the future and there's something I haven't addressed in this. But I think being prepared, getting the mileage in, and if you're comfortably, especially in the last 6 to 8 weeks, if you're comfortably doing runs where it's longer than 4 miles, when you are getting tired during those 48 hours, it's like, you know what, it's only 4 miles. I can do 4 miles. I will say one thing in terms of suffering. The week after it, with the exception of the head for staying out drinking that night, the sleep pattern was shot. So I was waking up like pretty much every hour and a half, 2 hours for the next 4 or 5 days. and being like, I have to go for a run, or I have to do this challenge. And my mind was playing tricks on me, like, this is the new challenge, you're doing it right now. I'm like, no, I gotta stay in bed. What are you talking about? So my head has been all over the shop all week. And I also led to this podcast being late. I didn't apologize for that start now, but I apologize now the podcast was late. I was away for 2 days of the wedding, so I couldn't sync up my schedules with Rachel and Eric's, and they're doing incredible different things with the Any Given Training Day, the brand, I suppose, for lack of a better word right now. Eric's doing a lot of stuff in the side of nutrition, Rachel with the social media and doing the 5k runs and the running plans and different things there as well. So we just couldn't get our schedules to link over this weekend. Hopefully, I think Rachel and Eric might be doing a podcast themselves next week, with the bank holiday and all the rest, and then from the week after, trios will be back on, and we're hoping to have guests coming onto the podcast as well coming to the summer. So apologies once again, I was late. I know it wasn't the best podcast episode in the world, but hopefully there is something you got from that in terms of maybe a bit of a push or a motivation to do something like a 4x4x48 challenge or whatever it is. The last thing I'll leave it on, apart from the fact that I really, really enjoyed this challenge and enjoying the run and the miles and the legs, is that because it was a Goggins challenge and the suffering never came, I do have a backup plan for the suffering that I'm really, really hot. Talking to Dara about this in the run. I'm really hoping to talk more about this when it becomes official in the next couple of weeks. So on that cliffhanger and on that bombshell, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. That's it, just for myself this week. Take care. Bye.